Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. In this video, we will be talking about the potential 2024 Republican primary between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Now, this would be a surprising primary, and it would really mean something if Ron DeSantis steps up and runs against Trump. That would really be solidifying that the party has moved on from Trump and that he does not represent the party anymore. Does that quite mean that DeSantis would win the primary against Trump? We will have to see in this video. So Ron DeSantis, of course, is the governor of Florida, whose popularity has skyrocketed since he was elected in 2018, but especially after the 2022 midterms, when he won re-election in Florida by almost 20%. That is unheard of in a statewide election in Florida, as it has, been characterized as very much one of the swingiest states in recent history in elections in Florida. In 2018, it went to Ron DeSantis by less than a percentage point, but he was still able to win. Of course, Donald Trump is already a candidate in the Republican primary, and many Republicans who have moved on from Trump are calling on Ron DeSantis to run against Trump in 2024. In fact, a sitting U.S. Senator, Cynthia Lummis, from the state of Wyoming, has actually endorsed Ron DeSantis for president in 2024. So, in this hypothetical primary, who would win? Obviously, there would be more candidates, I believe, but just these two. Let's get into it right now. So, let's just go west to east on this one. So, no Democrats. We don't do this very often. So, I'm just going to start off with it. Alaska, I think, would go to Ron DeSantis. I guess I won't do margins on this one, just because it would be a little confusing with the red and yellow, and it's not really necessary. But Alaska, I'm going with Ron DeSantis. I think that after the midterms, they are really going to want more of a moderate Republican, and the majority of Republicans in Alaska are moderates. A lot of them voted for Mary Peltola in the congressional election this year with ranked choice voting. And they have a pretty more traditional Republican governor, and they reelected moderate Republican Lisa Murkowski over the extremist Kelly Tshibaka this year for Senate. So Alaska, I do believe, would go to Ron DeSantis. Hawaii, I'm not seeing much for Trump. I'm not seeing much for DeSantis in Hawaii. I see that as a safe Trump state. Going to California, this one's going to be tough, but at the end of the day, it is going to go to California. Sorry we don't have a delegate count. This is just going to be more of, just what each state is, how each state is voting. But in the future, of course, we will have more in-depth videos about delegates and such. But I see Trump winning the state of California. DeSantis will put up a good fight, and it's going to probably be decided by 8% maybe. But a lot of these solidly Democratic states, a lot of them are going to vote for Donald Trump, while a lot of these Republican states, like Alaska, are going to go to Ron DeSantis. So California, I see going to Trump. Oregon, Washington, not seeing much hope for DeSantis there. He could put up a good fight in all three of these states, but I don't see it at this point. Going to the state of Nevada, this is like one of the early caucus, it's the third contest, I believe, in the Republican. I know it is for Democrats, but I believe it's for the Republicans. I see this as a DeSantis state. I'm unsure if Cruz won in 2016. I don't think he did. But I think DeSantis will have an appeal here. A lot of Hispanics are registering Republican lately, like in mass numbers that we've never seen before, and a lot of them will turn out for Ron DeSantis. I think that he's going to have an appeal across the Sun Belt. Sure, he's from the South, but I think he's going to have an appeal from Florida to North Carolina to Nevada and then through Texas all the way. I think that is where he will do well. I think that he's going to fit what voters want in that region. I see Nevada going to Ron DeSantis. Going to Idaho, I see that as a DeSantis state. Cruz won it by a wide margin in 2016. And here's the big thing, most of these Cruz states are going to go to Ron DeSantis, okay? Most of these Cruz states will go to Ron DeSantis. Montana, going to Ron DeSantis. A lot of moderate Republicans. Arizona, I don't think I need to talk about too much. The vast majority of Arizona Republicans are moderate. That is why a lot of them voted for Biden in 2020, and that's why Biden won in 2020 and why Mark Kelly won in 2022. Ron DeSantis wins the state of Arizona. He also wins the state of Utah. I believe this was the state that went to Ted Cruz by the widest margin in 2016. They are not Trump supporters, but of course they are going to vote for the Republican presidential elections. But in the primary, they reject him. They vote for Ron DeSantis. Wyoming, I think, is too far-fetched for Ron DeSantis to win. I feel that Trump is going to have more of an appeal in Wyoming. I think that Idaho and Wyoming would be very close, but I think that Wyoming will go to Trump. I don't see DeSantis, being from the Sun Belt, having that much appeal for Wyoming. I think that Ted Cruz would have more of an appeal to win a state like Wyoming. Same goes for North Dakota. I see that as a Trump state. Going to South Dakota, this is one that DeSantis could win by a very narrow margin. I think that DeSantis would have enough support in the Midwest to very narrowly carry the state of South Dakota. And if DeSantis wins, and if he's winning a lot of upsets in a lot of states, he could really have the momentum to win South Dakota. Kansas, I see as a Trump state, but definitely, Nebraska, Trump state, but definitely Kansas goes to DeSantis, like Montana, like Alaska, like Arizona. A lot of moderate Republicans here who will turn out for Ron DeSantis. Colorado is tough. I'm going to give this one to DeSantis narrowly because Ted Cruz won by a substantial margin in 2016. But as it has become more Republican, that makes me think that it would go to Trump. New Mexico, I'm going to give to DeSantis because of that Sun Belt appeal. I think that he would do pretty well in the state of New Mexico. Texas, I don't think would go to DeSantis. Even though he has that Sun Belt appeal, I don't see Texas going to Ron DeSantis. I think that Trump is going to have more of an appeal here. I think that Ted Cruz would come out and endorse Trump. I think that Greg Abbott would come out and endorse Trump. I think that John Cornyn would come out and endorse Trump. A lot of these elected officials, I think, would stand behind Trump in Texas. I don't think DeSantis would have the momentum to win in Texas. Same with Oklahoma. I don't see him having too much appeal there. I think that one's going to go to Trump. Minnesota was a Rubio state in 2016, the only state that Rubio won. This one's tough. I don't know how Rubio won. It was an extremely narrow margin. I'm shocked that Rubio won. I think that Trump would win it. I don't see DeSantis is going to have a very hard time in the Rust Belt. That is what is going to cost him potentially a presidential election, a general election, or potentially a primary. He doesn't have that Rust Belt appeal. I think that is going to weaken him a lot. Rust Belt, again, Iowa. A lot of farmers here. DeSantis won't have that same appeal that Trump has. Trump turned out those white working class voters. I don't see DeSantis being able to do that especially in a primary. Missouri, I definitely have hope for DeSantis. Definitely say that I see him winning. It is, it's a southern state. I think that he would connect with the voters a lot. In Missouri, I see a substantial amount of moderate Republicans. Remember, they voted for Eric Schmidt for their senator in the primary over more of an extreme Eric Greitens and Vicky Hartzler. So I think that DeSantis would carry Missouri. In Arkansas, here's the thing. The South is so tough because DeSantis comes from the South. He could definitely have a huge appeal here. But these are more of the non-college educated, overwhelmingly white voters, most of which I see Trump still having a grip over them. A lot of these, not to be rude, but more uneducated voters, I feel that their support of Trump won't be affected by the 2022 midterms, while a lot of people's Republicans in Utah, Republicans in Idaho, Montana, their vote will be affected by the midterms. So I think that Trump would carry Arkansas. I'm going to give Louisiana to him also. Mississippi and Alabama, now we're talking to more DeSantis territory. Of course, he would win his home state of Florida by a wide margin. I'm going to give Alabama to him, but I think Mississippi would stay with Trump. I really do. I think that Tennessee and Kentucky are easily in DeSantis' hands. They're slightly more moderate, I guess you could say, more common sense than some other states. But Going to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, that's a clean sweep for DeSantis in all three of these states. I see him being a perfect candidate for those three states, going up the Atlantic coast. I think that he would pretty easily win those three states. But South Carolina would be a big win for him, as it is an early state. But going to the Rust Belt, this is where DeSantis will fail. He simply won't connect with those white working class voters the way that Trump did. He's not going to be talking about immigration, stealing jobs, the way that Trump was able to connect with these voters talking about that issue in 2016 and 2020. Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana's in play, but it's going to Trump. Ohio, Michigan, West Virginia, all going to Trump. I'll just do it now. Pennsylvania goes to Trump also. I don't see much for DeSantis there. Virginia's tough. I'm giving it to Trump. More of these Democratic states, I think that Trump would excel in. But this one would be very close. Maybe a 2-point win for Trump. And then going to these very Democratic states, Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, I don't see much for DeSantis here. I think that Trump could have a clean sweep up New England, even up New England. I think that he would carry New York, many delegates. He wins 26 states so far. I see DeSantis winning Connecticut. A lot of Republicans here, remember, they nominated Bob Stefanowski for governor twice, moderate Republican who fits in with the Charlie Baker, Larry Hogan, Phil Scott, Chris Sununu kind of feel. But going to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont definitely, but New Hampshire would be very close, and it is an extremely important state, and I will give it to DeSantis, as I feel that he could have the momentum early on, even after Trump win in Iowa, to possibly carry the state, and I think that he would carry Maine, as Cruz did very well in 2016. So here's my final map for DeSantis. Sorry, not final. No, we're close to final. I'll be doing a lot more of these. Donald Trump wins 29 states. Ron DeSantis wins 21. With this, Trump definitely does win the nomination because looking at these states that DeSantis wins, they're very rural. The only big population state he wins is Florida and Georgia, North Carolina, if you will. But really only Florida is the big population state that he wins. Trump, on the other hand, wins more states, wins 8 more states, and that includes California, Texas, New York, 3 huge states, along with, these 20 electoral votes, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois, a lot of more states for him with big populations. So Trump definitely does win the nomination in 24 against DeSantis currently, but this could very well change as more polls come out. So thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and